Hey there, hi there, hello there. This is Les Bowen, and this is Bowen on the Birds. We're delayed a little bit today by some technical problems, but we're here. Eagles training camp is moving right along. We're going to have to, I've got a bad feedback here. We're going to have to work on this a little more, folks. Hang with us just a Okay. I hope everybody can hear me now. And we're going to bring Mike Tanier in and see if we can bring order to our chaos this afternoon on Bowen on the Birds.
It was like one of those early Pink Floyd records for a while there.
Yeah, it really was. Yes. Or that the Grateful Dead thing they do with drums and space. That was
Space and drums
like that as well. Yeah,
a little bit of space and drums on a rainy day here in the 856.
How are you?
I am doing well. Excited, as you probably know. I just started a new job at the Messenger.
Yes,
going to be one of the NFL voices there. Also, the Almanac, formerly known as the Football Outsiders Almanac, now the FTN Almanac, featuring Aaron Schatz, featuring DVOA. That's now available in print and online. So we're back to normal around here in August. Eagles camp's in session. There's preseason games tonight. I've been sitting here writing all day about football. Everything is back to normal. It feels good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I was actually out at camp yesterday doing a freelance story. You know, they don't let you just wander down there whenever you want. So, it's the only time I've been to camp this year. And it was very interesting. There was a link practice, so it wasn't, the norm. But I got to talk to a few guys, and Jordan Mailata was very glad to see me for some reason. But, it was interesting. And I walked in with my "How do you do, fellow kids" thing, for all the other writers, and it was all right. I do want to talk to you about your situation. So the Messenger, tell us about the Messenger. What is the Messenger?
The Messenger is a new online-only, totally free source for news, politics, sports, business, entertainment, and yes, sports and football coverage. So it is a new startup. It's kind of still in beta mode. The sports department officially launches August 28th, but we've been putting some stuff out there. I got a head start on slandering Aaron Rodgers, slandering the Cowboys, trying to get back into midseason form here. But check it out. It's The Messenger, and it's The Messenger on all your social networks. And it's a variety of news. And, of course, you can get the newsletter. There's other things you can do there. But I'm real excited about it.
That's amazing. And I did see your piece on the Hall of Fame game, which was very funny. You were suitably irreverent about the way it was presented. Tell us a little bit about, what you wrote and what that broadcast was like. For those of us who were happy to miss it, I think would be the way I would put my level of interest there.
I think it was a little bit of a loyalty test. You start a new job. And, the boss might be like, let's see what he's willing, what level of humiliation he's willing to handle. And it's like, well, do a response to the Hall of Fame game. But again, you're talking to somebody who was out of work for a few months. Like, yes, Kellen Mond versus Zach Wilson. Gimme, gimme, gimme. And there were not a lot of takeaways. There were not a lot of actual takeaways from that game. But the one that I think, people have sort of responded to now is the entire game and the one hour pregame show was a Aaron Rodgers infomercial.
Yes.
There was no I don't want criticism. I get you're not going to get criticism. How about some critical thinking?
Yeah.
like any skepticism, anything besides like going back and showing the video of him at the Taylor Swift concert for the 25th time. So, it was 4 hours of everyone holding hands and singing Kumbaya about a guy who, of course, is standing on the side, drinking his Gatorade or whatever he's drinking.
And has no role in this game whatsoever. Yeah.
No, he's drinking his tripping tea on the side. He's tripping on balls on the sideline. Then HBO does their Hard Knocks, and it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people started to respond to this like, oh, all of this feel good stuff isn't really that Aaron Rodgers has changed. It's that this is simply what the Jets need very desperately to broadcast to everyone. So, like, Kellen Mond looks terrible. Zach Wilson looks like Zach Wilson. He threw one good pass. People tried to act like that was a sign that, the Jets could trade him for a second-round pick or something.
Yeah.
Game was horrible, but it was made worse by having to hear again and again that Aaron Rodgers is the kindest, gentlest, warmest person we've ever met.
Yeah, that whole Canton setup is I just wonder if that's going to continue. The players, there's one year recently where they just couldn't play the game because the turf was so horrible. The players complain about the facilities, not having hot water and things like that. And, it's 2023 in the NFL. You're not barnstorming around, playing preseason games in, Scranton and stuff anymore.
Right.
I know the Hall of Fame is in Canton, but maybe the game doesn't need to be in Canton. I don't know. But it's a kind of an anachronism. And I know from covering the Eagles that if you're in that game, you start training camp way earlier than everybody else.
Right.
And it's just a big pain in the butt for everyone involved.
Right. I don't think the players like it. The coaches like it. It's sort of almost like an NFL's courtesy to the actual physical Hall of Fame, which doesn't do very well financially in general. Not many. Cooperstown, you go to Cooperstown for the Baseball Hall of Fame. You're on the lake. It's like a beautiful antique-laden downtown. Canton's Canton. You pull off the interstate, you go to this little museum, and then you drive away. It's not even like there's like sports bars and stuff around it. So the museum itself does poorly. So I think it's like they want to provide, try and get people interested in it. I don't know if that game really accomplishes that.
Yeah, I remember covering it. I remember I was with our photographer, Young Kim, and driving back to, I guess we were staying in Cleveland because I don't think you can get accommodations anywhere near there for that weekend. And we kept looking for a place to eat, and we ended up going through a drive-through and eating in the car. That was our meal for the evening. Yeah,
right. And that's a fan going in, maybe couple of guys going on a road trip. Let's see the Hall of Fame, or a family going in. You'd think there'd be a place to get like a 20-piece wings and mozzarella sticks and have a beer and be surrounded by paraphernalia. And there's not, maybe it's changed in the last couple of years, but there's nothing really like that.
That was my experience. Yeah, absolutely. Well, moving on. So the other thing you were talking about with Football Outsiders' demise, how did it get birthed into what it is now, and tell me about all that.
It's not 100% rebirthed at this point, but what happened was we were happy that the folks at the FTN Network, which is a fantasy and wagering site, and folks can check it out. Yeah, I believe it's ftn.com. We're excited about doing the Almanac and contacted Aaron Schatz when it became more and more obvious that the folks who had purchased Football Outsiders from the people who purchased Football Outsiders from Aaron, it's a very complicated thing, were not behaving responsibly and had simply, let's be blunt, stopped paying anyone. And Aaron, the founder, but no longer the owner of the company, had to move on. The folks at FTN came in, and I was thrilled, and I was inspired by the fact that, I said, Aaron, if we do an almanac, I'm coming back and doing chapters. So did everybody else. So did Brian Knowles. So did Derek Clausen. So did Scott Spratt, Vince Ferry. People who had not gotten paid in months rushed back for the opportunity to do this. And I'm proud of the work we did here. So the Almanac is there. It's at FTN. The question I cannot answer for you, because I don't even have the answer myself, is where will DVOA be this year? Where will Aaron Schatz be this year? And
DVOA, that's a big thing, obviously, as you know, DVOA is a very big thing. And I enjoy reading Aaron very much. And, everything about our business is just so turbulent these days. It's just unbelievable, the amount of churn. places that looked very, very stable, like ESPN and The Athletic, suddenly people are scrambling for jobs, and they're not. The Athletic started with the premise that it's pretty much totally abandoned now under its current ownership. I know in some markets, not so much Philadelphia, because they've stayed pretty strong in the Philadelphia market, but in places like Indianapolis, people are like, this isn't what we signed up for. We signed up because you were covering all this stuff, the college stuff and the Colts and the Pacers, and now you're not. You don't have beat writers for this, and what the hell? Why are we giving you our money? It's just been it's been a turbulent summer, I think, in the sports media industry.
But the Athletic managed to make the New York Times shutter their sports department, which was my other source of revenue besides Football Outsiders. So that was it. And I think the Athletic, I don't want to badmouth the Athletic, but like there was a little bit of the thing where they come in like a Walmart and they kind of beat up all the mom and pop stores, so that when they walk away, there's nothing left in their wake, which is right. Which is difficult. But in terms of DVOA, if I weren't a longtime Football Outsider, if I were just a writer in this business and didn't know Aaron at all, I'd be using DVOA all the time. And I'd be like, I like that. I prefer that. I kind of need that to be able to look for a quick power ranking or say, where does Jalen Hurts rank in passing DVOA, and where does Justin Herbert work, and where Dak Prescott and these guys? So I don't have any inside information, but I hope we're going to find a place where that's going to land this year. Extremely unlikely that will be Football Outsiders.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to get to a commercial here before too long, but before we do that, I did want to introduce our poll question for today, because we already have some people nibbling around the edges of that in our comments section. My thesis is, the Eagles. This is something I talked to the other writers about yesterday. The Eagles are having an incredibly boring training camp. Nothing has happened. The position battles have gone. I could have sealed an envelope 2 months ago with my predictions of how things were going to go at safety and at right guard, and I would be totally up with where we are today anyway. Obviously, more stuff can still happen. They haven't played any preseason games yet, but it's just, there's no controversy, there's no injuries, there's no nothing really interesting going on. No personalities of any great magnitude appearing on the scene. But my thesis is that a boring camp is the best camp, as bad as it is for the people that have to try to make news out of it. That from the team's perspective, this is what you want. The big thing that you're really terrified of is injuries, coming off a long season, having played in the Super Bowl. They really haven't had any serious injuries. What do you think? Would it be better if they could entertain the folks with a little more, maybe some fights or something, or am I onto something?
You're onto it. The Jets have been entertaining people in training camp for 15 years, 20 years, yes, however long it's been. Okay. The Cowboys are having a very entertaining camp. If you like seeing Micah Parsons hit Dak Prescott in camp, which no Cowboys fan would want, that's happening. This is exactly what you want. You don't want injuries. You don't want intrigues. Okay. And what you're really looking at, of course, is a team with, let's say, 20 positions already set coming in and a lot of the backup positions set in. And this is about what you want from it. So, yeah, it's a different perspective when you're a beat every day and you have to come up with a story. Yeah. And maybe when you're a fan too, and like, I want to hear what's going on. Give me like some running back I've never heard of shining. It's like, no, it's the guys you heard of. It's the guys that you're counting on, and that's who's performing every day.
That's exactly right. Well, let's go to that commercial now, if our producer Ralph is ready, and we'll be right back on the other side with Mike Tanier from the Messenger.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
And we're back with Bowen on the Birds and our guest, Mike Tanier, a fellow resident of the south of Jersey. Mike lives just maybe a couple miles from me, across a couple of pikes, the White Horse and the Black Horse. I've never seen any horses on either of those roads, but I'm still waiting.
I hope not. Those horses would be in big trouble on those roads.
They would, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's Friday afternoon. They'd probably make a better time than traffic does. But so we're talking about training camps. And one of the things I was thinking about yesterday, being very, very old and having done this for a very long time, is just how different it is from what it was 10, 12 years ago. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the collective bargaining agreement. They're not allowed to do 2-a-days. I remember when Andy Reid would hit twice a day for several days in training camp at Lehigh. Most teams don't go to places like Lehigh anymore. It's at their facility, and it's a normal practice. And the way the Eagles do it, it's a normal practice, and then you take a day off, and then there's another normal practice. It's very leisurely and not at all the kind of I used to have to go stay in Bethlehem for a couple weeks and eat dinner in an Applebee's at 10:30 at night. It was a real, you felt like if you'd gotten through training camp that the rest of the season was kind of downhill after that. It's very different for the players and for everyone else. Obviously, there was more fan access then too.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways, for the writers, the job is harder because all they're getting with the Eagles these days are maybe 4 or 5 tent interviews. You can't even grab a guy coming off the field. Right. You can't do anything that everybody else isn't doing. You will talk to Myles Jack today, and that will be your story. And if you don't like it, too bad. At Lehigh, you could hang out behind the locker room thing there and get guys as they came out, and you could put together stories about it. If you wanted to write about the defensive backfield and what Sean Desai wants to do with that, you could get 3 or 4 guys on a single day without having to wait weeks for for those guys to come up in an interview tent. It's so managed now, and they don't need us. That's the bottom line. They feel like people will still watch their product and pay money for their Kelly Green jerseys and all that stuff, whether they give us any good access or not. And they're right. They're right about that. But I still think the consumer suffers from these changes.
I remember, and this is like 10 years ago, so we're not going back super far.
Yeah.
I'd go out to do the Steelers in Latrobe. And when the players were going for lunch, there was like a little tree outside their cafeteria, and you could sit around underneath their tree and you could ask for guys to come over. And I remember getting assistant coaches. I remember getting, like the backup quarterback for a while and things like that. And some of the guys from the media department would help you out a little bit because I'd be a visiting person. It's like, I don't know this linebacker from that linebacker. Hey, that's it. I'll help you get the guy a little bit. Not only that, but after practice, they would all come right past the press pool and you could grab a guy. So it's something as simple as undrafted rookie safety gets 2 interceptions in the practice. You can grab them coming off the field and say, "Hey, that was fun. That was exciting. How do you feel about it?" Et cetera, et cetera. Go back 3 or 4 years later, and I haven't been up there since, I guess, 2019. They're going in the other direction. So after practice, they go the other way. The press is here. They're going out that sideline, and nobody's waiting at lunch anymore. You can't stand outside there anymore along the way. Yeah. Repeat that across teams around the league. I go down to Owens Mills to see the Ravens, and it's exactly what you say. It's like, on Thursday, the defensive backs coach will come out, and Humphreys, the cornerback, will come out, and the new safety will come out. You will be writing about the defensive backs today. Tomorrow it'll be wide receivers. You will get Lamar on Friday, however they're doing it. And, in a smaller press pool, maybe there's a total of 4 outlets there, and maybe like 8 or 9 people, including like the Williamsport Gazette or whatever. big market like this, there's competition. There's real competition.
Right.
Right. To say, I'll just get the quotes from these guys and put it together and make an article. It's like your competitor is going to write the same article. And the reader is going to be like, well, what the hell is this? I've got I've got 7 articles about the same guy here saying the same thing. And it's boring for the fan. And it doesn't do well for that kind of super vociferous, hardcore fan, whether it's a fantasy person or just somebody who's really into it. But of course, what the team does, the team has absolute control of the viral highlight.
Yeah.
Here's the touchdown that somebody caught, and we'll just show you the viral video and follow us on Threads, X, whatever.
Yeah.
And screw those print reporters, because we didn't let that guy get interviewed after the practice.
Right. Yeah. That's very well said. That's absolutely true. The big thing yesterday when I was over there, they did finally let people talk to Myles Jack, the linebacker they signed the other day. Also Zach Cunningham, the other linebacker they signed the other day. They were both very personable, but Jack was really funny and very quotable in his time. And I wanted to ask you, what do you make of this guy's career? I mean, can he still help them, you think? And this is a guy that, let's go back to, he was drafted in 2016.
Yes.
There was at least one outlet that considered him the most talented player available in that draft. He was certainly, a lot of people had him in the top 10, but he had done a very strange thing. He suffered a bad knee injury that previous season at UCLA and decided to declare for the draft with a bad knee that hadn't healed,
Right.
So there was no doubt that this was going to affect his draft positioning somehow, and it ended up affecting it dramatically. He ended up going in the second round, which isn't usually the case for the guy that some people think is the most talented player in the draft.
Right.
But he turned out to be in Jacksonville. They put together for a very brief period of time an excellent defense that he was a key part of, and he got a second contract from Jacksonville for a lot of money, for like $57 million over 4 years, I think. But then the next year wasn't so good, and he was promptly cut and signed by the Steelers for 2 years. And it was a decent deal. It wasn't top of the market money, but it was a decent deal. So he's with the Steelers last season, and then they cut him. And, so what are we looking at here? I know he's had another knee injury since he's been in the league. I don't expect you to be an expert on every player on every team, but what do I only follow the Eagles pretty much, so I don't really know what to expect here from Myles Jack. What do you think of him?
It's so bad here that I had him mixed up with the guy the linebacker the Cowboys drafted with the knee injury.
Oh, yeah. That was a different problem. That was a nerve problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And he played well. And I'm blanking. I want to say Jalen Smith.
Yes, that's right. That's his name. Yes.
Right. And then after a couple of years, he was fading bad. And the Giants grabbed him, and the Giants just needed a body, and he was terrible. Jack has been productive, even with the Steelers last year. I think the Steelers were concerned. The other linebacker, the Michigan kid, Bush, had not really developed. And I think Jack was brought on to sort of push him to a degree. And so I think they both wound up playing, and their defense was fine, whatever. Sometimes, he's a big name, but sometimes the linebackers, especially those just like space linebackers or like running backs, where it's like you bring them in, and if they got fresh legs, they're operating within the structure and the system, and they're not giving you that much that the next guy doesn't do. And so, I kind of see him that way. I haven't studied Cunningham. Cunningham was with the Texans for a while. I think I lost track of him a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's a little older, I think, and I should know this, but I think he has a little more mileage, and I think he probably is, it's more clear cut with him that he's past his best days. But the Eagles were in such they cut Davion Taylor. That's one of the things we're supposed to talk about here today, according to the crawl running across the bottom of the screen that I actually wrote, so I should probably stick to it. Davion Taylor was a head scratcher of a third-round pick 4 years ago. 3 years ago. 3 years ago. I was very confused when they drafted him that high. They don't, we know you're talking to Eagles fans here, so everybody knows the Eagles' history with drafting linebackers. They don't really invest a lot into that. So they invested a third-round pick into this guy from Colorado who was supposed to be a great athlete, but he had this weird, I guess it was Seventh-day Adventist background.
Oh,
and he
God.
had
Yes.
to play on Friday nights his whole high school career. And then he went to Colorado and played like a year and a half or something. And then out of that, the Eagles drafted him in the third round. And, you know, I've been covering sports a long time. And in this sport and in other sports, the only guy I've ever seen who made good, who was a great athlete, who had never really played the sport much, was Jordan Mailata.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody else. I've seen this in baseball, I've seen it in hockey, and I've seen it in football. And my rule is don't draft guys who haven't played the game.
Right.
You know, there's a lot to it when you get to the professional level, and you don't just pick this up. You know, Mailata needed 2 years of not playing in games.
Right.
And even then he had to work just ridiculously hard to pick all this up. And it's a miracle that he did, you know, everything that he did and stuck with it. But Davion Taylor, you know, he's out in the wind. I don't think anybody signed him. What did you make of that guy? And once I guess my point is, once they got rid of that guy,
right,
they had to sign a linebacker somewhere or a couple linebackers. They really let themselves this offseason get incredibly thin at that, and they didn't really pay any attention to it whatsoever, it seemed like to me.
They never do, of course, and fans will shake.
I mean, last year with TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, they had
right
B-, C+ linebacking, I thought, you know.
And then you draft Dean and you bring him in, but even Dean comes in with a strange question mark. Like, this guy looks like the most straightforward prospect in the world. Like, why is he still out there in, what was it, the fourth round? When did the Eagles eventually get him? And then there's mysteries about injuries and everything. Taylor, you know, I do so much draft. And the guy who's an athlete and a story, you know, draft nicks. It's one thing if you're on the internet and you're writing features and like, I'm gonna stand for this guy totally. Because look, imagine if he does this, imagine does this. Here's his one game that we have, like that's almost what Trey Lance is in San Francisco. Here's that game we saw that one time. You know, as an organization, you can't fall into that. And the Eagles with different decision makers have done that from time to time. I'll say other teams are worse, but like if you go back, you know, you can say Andy
Curtis
Reid.
Marsh.
Which one was Curtis Marsh?
He was a corner who was a running back in college until his final year at whatever school he went to. It wasn't like it was like San Diego State or somewhere like that. He had a good year at corner after converting from running back, and the Eagles made him like I want to say second or third round pick. And no, he was not a. Also, Marcus Smith, first round pick.
Yeah. Well, that was
started out as a quarterback. And just had no instincts as a pass rusher whatsoever. No moves,
Yeah. You'll never convince me that it wasn't a case where somebody jumped ahead of the Eagles to get Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. They had a list of a bunch of guys that they thought they could at least get one of, and they all went like right in the picks right up before the Eagles drafted. And so you punt, but when they punted, they shanked the punt. You know, they traded back late in the first round and then picked a guy that wasn't even, you know, any kind of reasonable prospect. You don't have to do that. You know, there's still players available. Yeah.
Well, and I'm Danny Watkins, the firefighter.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bloom, the scare, right?
Yes.
Right. So, but like other teams have this long list of, my God, like the Eagles fans will get I can't believe we did this. And if we started going through the Cowboys history, it'd be full of all kinds of goofy, like little picadillos by Jerry or by somebody else along the way. It's so much of it is concentrated at linebacker. And even Kaiser White, I mean, he played decently last year. He's one of those guys where if you watch the highlights, especially going back to the Chargers, watch the highlights. It's like, oh my gosh, the speed, shoots a gap and makes a tackle. And then if you watch play by play, you would see, okay, he's in the wrong gap there. You know, he's late reacting there, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it was as big a problem last year when everyone was getting smashed all the time in front of him, but it was a problem before, you know. these are the kind of players that the Eagles, I think, wind up getting at linebacker a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So now you have two professionals, two experienced professionals, and of course you got Nakobe Dean. And I was actually just doing a little write-up. I'm doing write-ups for the Messengers, and I wrote a thing about the defensive line, which took a while, because there's a lot of guys with defensive line. A little thing about the secondary, and I think I wrote one line about linebacker. And that's kind of how you approach the Eagles, and I think that's almost like how they approach it on defense.
Yeah, but I just wonder. I do think there have been years when it hurt them. There was that bad year with Doug Peterson, the last year with Doug.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big problems with that defense was their linebackers weren't NFL players.
Right.
And you have to have reasonable linebacking. You
right.
can't just throw people off the street out there and play because you don't value that position. That doesn't work.
Right.
And I wonder, where they're headed with this year. It's not going to be like last year, I don't think. We need to go to one more commercial here, Mike, and I hope you'll hang with us, and we'll be back on the other side for more from Mike Tanier of the Messenger.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
And we're back with Bowen on the Birds and Mike Tanier on a gloomy, rainy Thursday afternoon in the south of Jersey. We're talking about the Eagles. We're talking about linebackers. We're talking about draft busts. And one thing I did glean yesterday, I'd actually been reading this over the last several days. I was thinking this would be Kayvon Wallace's last training camp as an Eagle. This was a guy they drafted a few years back in the 4th round, and the press at the time was, "Oh, this is the steal. They got this guy. He was at Clemson. He was really a player, and he'll jump right in there." And I've never seen anything from Kayvon Wallace. I think he might have blocked a punt once.
Okay.
But other than that, as a safety, he looks like that guy that just can't quite. He shoots before, 2 steps before he's actually in position to tackle the guy. And coverage, I haven't seen it. But apparently he's having a hell of a camp.
Right.
Which means nothing to me, except, I'm glad he's trying. But I guess starting Saturday night against the Ravens in Baltimore, we'll see if he can actually do this against other players on other teams instead of the receivers whose patterns he knows by heart. And, and they're not really tackling people in the Eagles training camp. So we're not really, whatever impressive stuff he's doing, it doesn't involve that. So, but anyway, what do you make of that guy? And is there any chance safety's another position where they're not overwhelmed with depth like they are at corner, for example, where they have about 24 sitting around. But so what, Kayvon Wallace, do you think he has a future here or somewhere, or what do you think?
I'm hearing, what you saw out of training camp.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who's I had my eye on was Sidney Brown coming out of Illinois. Just he's undersized, but just an absolute missile. If you watch the Illinois defense, their entire secondary was amazing. Lovie Smith was coaching there, and not a lot of other things went well, but his secondary is going to be good. That's how it's going to be. And this is a kid also A+ character guy, very aggressive mentality. He's a rookie. He's a safety. From what I understand, it is very much a work in progress with him. Other side of that is I think of him as more of a strong safety type. I think Kayvon's penciling at the free safety. Edmonds now coming out of Pittsburgh. So it's another one of those things where, especially when you do it analytically, you analyze a defense from the outside in. not the way we used to, inside out. Are you strong at D
Mhm.
tackle, middle linebacker, or safety? It's, are you strong at edge, cornerback, and work your way in? So,
Yes.
I look at free safety, and whether it's him, I don't know what Blankenship's been doing. I haven't seen much out of
I think
him.
he's been good, and I think he's fine. I think
Okay.
I don't think you want to project. The danger with a guy like that is he shows up as an undrafted free agent and plays well, and suddenly people think he's going to be like a Pro Bowl safety.
Right.
That's probably not going to be the case for a guy who was undrafted because of athletic measurements, more than anything else. But I think he can be a solid starting quality, decent player, But with Sidney Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at NFL defenses these days, and I'm totally baffled by a lot of this stuff because unlike you, I was never a math teacher, and but it's just they're so complex. The defenses are. A rookie safety starting, I'm going to have to see it, and I'm going to have to think that it would be more toward the second half of the season than right off the bat. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, the box safety position is a lot of times it's almost like that mixed with the will linebacker position, mixed with the slot cornerback position, where you're going to line up differently with different formations every single time and have different assignments. It's going to be tricky for a rookie. What I don't remember, what I don't have in front of me, is how much he was being asked to do by Lovie Smith. I have a funny feeling Lovie Smith had him sort of in this section of the field and said, either go blitz the rare times we blitz, or you're in this zone, you're in this zone, you're in this zone. So yeah, that would seem like it would be more of a work in progress type of thing. I'm curious how they're going to put this all together. It looks like slot corner is going to be what's his name? Maddox again, right?
Maddox, yeah.
Right. Is he going to be somebody who's going to take a lot of those roles? He's another smaller guy. Is he going to be the guy who's going to be in there putting his nose in the box? Is that going to be how they're going to configure things?
Well, that leads to another complication, which is you could certainly, with all the corners they have, and they have, I mean, it's not just guys. I mean, they have corners who can play behind the two starters. I just wonder, you look at that room and you think, could somebody there play safety? I mean, is that an outrageous? Could Avonte Maddox just be a safety if they needed him to be, and have McPherson be the slot corner or something like that?
Could Ringo be the safety? I think he was a little slower than your average corner that you want, elite corner. That's why he lasts until fourth round.
Of course, another rookie who would have a lot to learn, but athletically, yeah.
Right, bigger guy. I would think him as like a free safety, where it's like he's back there. He's Kirby Smart trained, so he kind of knows what he's doing. He's got the reaction skills. But you're right, he's a rookie. I don't see Greedy Williams doing it. I from what I've heard, his camp hasn't been very good, but
he keeps doing dumb stuff, which is exactly what's been his MO. There's a guy that I happened to have a son who was in grad school at LSU when Greedy was there. And when that guy burst on the scene, it was like he was going to be some superstar corner.
Right.
And he doesn't seem to have, the head to go with it, I guess, is the takeaway I have. It was kind of a mystery to me that he was so readily available for nothing in the offseason, and I guess we're seeing why.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly the reputation he has, and the Browns get tired of you. That's hello.
Hey, I know something we haven't talked about yet. Real quickly, I didn't put it on my ticker here, but I think I'm allowed to discuss it anyway. Carson Wentz and that photo the other day of him wearing the workout attire from all the teams that he's played for. First of all, what goes into a decision to put all that stuff on and put that out there? And second, where does he go from here?
I don't think he returns to the NFL.
Really?
I don't think anyone. I mean, you hear what I hear in terms of let's start with like the concept of coachability.
Mm-hmm.
That sense that like he is not going to respond well when he's being asked to correct things from a coaching standpoint. He's now had a couple of different coaching staffs who've been like, this is not working out. It was manifest on the field so people could see it. and it was manifest in front of a couple of different organizations. So you can bring a guy in as a backup. The one thing you want as a backup is a guy who's going to come up, do his preparation properly,
Yes.
and sort of like tamp down the ego and things like that, and do what he's told. It doesn't sound like Carson Wentz is that guy.
That's kind of like what Cam Newton did not have a long career as a backup quarterback, after his starting days. Right. I guess Carson, but it's such a mystery to me. I would love to sit down with the guy and see what he thinks about this, because he's not stupid.
No.
And he has to have heard what the perception is.
Yeah.
Why can't you change the perception? Why can't you do what people say that you have to do and be a successful quarterback again? Why wouldn't that be something you'd want to try?
And like now he's 30 now, right? 31. This is not like he's not at the age where it's like he's 24. It's like no one's going to tell me what to do. You're matured to that point. I don't know the answer to that because I don't like speaking that much about an individual's character. But in terms of that video, I mean, his representation. The people who were handling his career. It's like they generally don't make mistakes like that, where you sort of not only do you say I am looking for work under these circumstances, but I advertise with this weird thing that I've.
Here are all the places I've failed. Yeah.
Right. And you've seen like Cam Newton. Cam Newton is working out with, whatever, Terrell Owens or somebody like that. And they do a couple of shots of him throwing bombs and people blow it up on the social networks. And it's like you generate that excitement. This was the opposite of that. This was
Carson. It's like Carson was on a dating site with holding up, here are my ex-wives. You know
what it is? Yeah, as I say, and you probably, because men our age, like you'll hear stories from women who like went out on a date with men our age who spend the entire time bad mouthing the ex-wife.
Yeah.
On the first date. And I've heard stories from employers, whether it was editors or, principals at schools. The person comes into the job interview and talks about all the things. My last job, they expected this, they expected this, they expected this. And you're like, why are you talking like this? We respect that you might have had some problems along the way. We don't want to hear it right away. We don't want to, and that's what I get, like this impression where if Carson Wentz goes in and talks to a coach, he's going to sit there and badmouth Doug Peterson and
make
Frank
excuses.
Instead of saying, "Ooh, I need this chance. Let me tell you what's new about me."
It's just a bafflement to me. And there is a physical element. I don't think he's ever, even if he got the coaching thing down at this point. You mentioned his age. Mm-hmm. I think there is a physical element to his demise. I don't think he's the athlete that he was 6 years ago. And I think there's something in his head from that that is also a problem, but it wouldn't keep him from being a great backup for somebody, if he had the right orientation, and he still has a good arm, but
backing up Josh Allen. So they need a guy to come off the bench who can like throw it through the moon or something like that.
I watched Marcus Mariota yesterday. I can't imagine that Carson is any worse than that. I have to think if Jalen Hurts gets injured, their plan is, okay, he's only going to be out for a few games, and Marcus can just take the snap and run, 3/4 of the time, or hand it off. And once in a while, we'll have a throw that nobody can screw up to Dallas Goedert or something, and everybody else block. I mean, they're not going to have him running their offense. And so, but my point is, Carson, there's opportunity out there. It's not like every backup in this league is a wonderful player. It makes no sense that this guy can't.
The Cardinals are starting their season with Colt McCoy and David Blau as their quarterbacks because Kyler Murray's hurt. Obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are suffering through guys. One thing that never really gets fixed once it gets really broken on a quarterback is the pocket clock.
Yeah.
When they start holding that ball forever, or like playing duck and run games or chuck and duck, all that stuff, that never really comes back. And that's really what it started to get bad with the Eagles in 2020. It got to be kind of a mess with the Colts in 2021. And last year, I mean, the Eagles played the Commanders in like week 2, week 3, and Carson just stood there. He just stood there. Like, what are you waiting for with this pass rush coming in? And it was just the processing was not how it was supposed to be. And I don't think that's something that gets corrected, even if the person's really willing to change.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that when he was really good, he made that work for him.
Yes.
In 2017, the thing that amazed me, and I tried to talk to him about it one time, was a lot of times, even though they had a good offensive line, he would be standing there, and at some point there would be a rusher, and the rusher would come at him, and he wouldn't run away from the rusher. He would just sort of spin or duck and like stiff arm the guy,
right?
And then make an incredible play downfield. Right. But it wasn't within the pattern at that point was not, he was just finding a guy, and throwing it, but it worked over and over and over and over again. And I think one thing that he lost was that ability to just, get rid of that first guy and the confidence to then, okay, now I'm clear. Let's go. Now it's like, okay, where's another guy? Is there another guy coming? And,
right.
Yeah, it's a mess.
And Cam Newton did a lot of the same things earlier in his career. And sometimes, and Cam had more athleticism to burn than Carson. He could lose a step. Carson couldn't. But of course, that's a good example of learning the wrong lessons, where it's like, I'm an MVP candidate. We're going to the Super Bowl, and I'm not really operating out of the structure in any meaningful way.
Right. Right. Very well said. Well, we've got one more commercial, Mike, and then I'll bring you back and we'll wrap this up. I really appreciate your time today, and we have a few more goodies to get to. So see you on the other side here for Bowen on the Birds.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
And we're back with the final segment of Bowen on the Birds with Mike Tanier, esteemed NFL writer for The Messenger. And one of the things before I let Mike go that I really wanted to get to today, I wanted to get to it before now, but here we are. Mike's background is so interesting to me. I had a much more conventional upbringing in this industry. I started out in college with a newspaper in my hometown, working in the sports department, and eventually got them to hire me when I graduated. And then I moved to Philadelphia and caught on with the paper here, and pretty much stayed with the same employer for 38 years, which isn't something that's going to happen very often, I think, with the current generation of sports writers. But Mike did it a different way. Mike had an entire career as a high school teacher before becoming a sports writer. Why anyone in their right mind would give up something that secure and noble to pursue this kind of crap is beyond me. But I'll let Mike explain it to you.
It's too real. That's too real. The way you put it there. I asked myself that question a lot over the last 6 months, but it's a long and kind of sometimes boring story. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Do you remember when the internet was fun, Les?
Just barely.
When the football NFL internet was fun, when everything felt free and lively, when Deadspin was real,
Mm-hmm.
and when Pro Football Talk is what it is now. Mike Florio, some of my friends are there. Yeah. It's great. It was this wild and willy and kind of funky and troublesome little thing in its day,
Remember Kissing Susie Colbert?
Yes. And Fire Joe Morgan.
Yeah.
Right. Like we didn't worry about what the search engines could find. We didn't go out and promote ourselves on the following 17 social networks. Just threw spaghetti at the wall. We saw what sticked, and sometimes it was problematic, and sometimes it was maybe a little offensive, and that part was bad. But sometimes it was just funny as heck, or
Yes.
new and interesting. That was 2003, 04, 05, 06, 07. And that's when it made sense for me to go from being a math teacher to going out there onto the internet a little bit using Aaron Schatz. Aaron Schatz was very new with DVOA, and all of a sudden analytics were a thing, and people would be like, what's this stupid crap? And then 5 years later, everyone's using it. And that was the time. And so we started Football Outsiders. I was still teaching. Went to the New York Times. The New York Times was actually looking for some humor and something different, something offbeat. And I had my opportunity there, and I was still teaching. And it all rose up at the time. And I'm blessed because I still get to do a lot of stats. I still get to do a lot of jokes. Like I said, at the Messenger, I've already taken my shots at Rodgers and shots at Prescott. But I do sometimes miss the feeling that it was very free and very open. And if you wanted to go in there and you wanted to talk about Dak Prescott, but then you also wanted to talk about old Pink Floyd records in the same article, you threw them in there and people were like, that's funny and that's different and we love it. Few of us get to do that now. I'm happy I get to.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And how long were you a teacher? How many years?
17 years. It was from 1992 to about, I guess, around 2010. I was at Audubon High School. This won't matter. It doesn't matter to a lot of people. They're Philly people here. I was at Audubon High School. I was at Overbrook in Jersey. I was at Clayton for a little while. In the last couple of years, again, I was working 2 jobs. So it was very neat to be able to go in, teach my classes, and then go out and come home and load up a bunch of stuff and write for some major outlets.
Plus you qualified for the pension, I'm sure. So that's got to help a little bit.
A little bit. There's a little bit of pension in there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's good. Well, it's just amazing that you've been able to do this, and you've stuck with it through all these winds that are buffeting the profession these days. I retired a couple years ago from day-to-day sports writing, and I didn't do it because I was sick of the work or because I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I did it because of all this, turbulence and the changes in the business and access and in, what we're expected to do. It wasn't as much fun, and it's so amazing that you've been able to steer a path through this. I just didn't have the energy anymore because I'm a lot older than you are, but I just felt like, okay, I've done it. I've done what I could do. I'll do some stuff after this, but I really can't. I'm not going to start writing listicles every day and stuff like that. Just was
asked of a beat anymore. A beat. I know you go back to the time you filed your story, but the additional time was usually spent sort of cultivating relationships,
right,
with the players, with the coaches, which was possible to do back in the day, and things like that. It wasn't. Well, now you filed that story. We don't need you to do a mailbag after that. And make sure you repost here, 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 and here. We're going to do a sting, and then you've got your podcast, et cetera, et cetera. And this is also, and in April, and in May, and in June, you're still going to be doing all of these things, and trying to get that access that you need to do more than just do a story on what the guy just told you at the podium interview. It's impossible to do. So on the one hand, the industry is saying, work this hard, do this many different things for this much money. And by the way, make sure everything you write is extremely clickable. So when you write about Kayvon Wallace, somehow you need to get the internet to want to click Kayvon Wallace's name a million times. So don't write about Kayvon. Write about Jalen Hurts. That's better. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, from what it sounds like, you've had the experience I had. You try to get a couple of days at camp, and they're not necessarily eager to, even though they know us all. They're not exactly eager to bring us in.
Oh, no. With the Eagles, it's unless you're with an accredited outlet that they, want to grant, and they can be very discerning about that. And they do have a lot of people who are in that press corps, probably one of the largest in the league or very close to it. The New York media is kind of divided a little bit among a few teams. So I don't think any team has more people showing up every day than the Eagles do. But still, there's just because you cover them for 20 years or 30 years or whatever, you don't get to just wander down there and talk to people. And, it is what it is. I don't like it, and I don't think fans are well served by a lot of these procedures. But that's the way of the world, and that's the world we live in these days. But it's there's a lot of stuff in sports, that it seems they've proven over and over again that there's whatever stupid stuff they do, they can't kill the demand.
Right.
But there's some people that are trying. I mean, this college sports deal with the conferences where
Mm-hmm.
the regional rivalries make no sense, and
Right.
Oh boy, let's have Oregon play Florida State, or something, instead of its traditional rival. I really wonder the route they're going down, if this is all going to work out like they think it will. It's not impossible to screw stuff up. It really isn't.
It is. And to like take away that like heart and soul level of fandom that's different from saying, I put a fantasy lineup in and I did a DraftKings, I placed a couple bets and I'll take it or leave it. That thing that makes you buy jerseys, that thing that makes you buy tickets. And you were a marching band parent.
Yeah.
And I was a marching band parent at college level. And we always think in terms of football and basketball, whatever. Talk about swimming. Talk about Florida State versus Oregon in swimming. Okay.
Trying to get those planes, and it's miserable.
Right.
Chip Kelly, of all people, had a very good idea. I don't know if you saw this the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Chip's not an idiot. He's kind of
he's just
functionally autistic or something, But his idea was that you just cut football off.
Yes.
That football is its own entity, and you organize it, however you want, but you leave these other sports alone in conferences that make sense in terms of travel and rivalries.
Right.
So that the swimming team isn't flying from USC to Cornell or something like that. That made a lot of sense to me. I don't know if it will happen, but I don't know how you do it.
It feels like it has to, because again, you're Rugder's parent. It's like anything but football, and probably football too. Okay, maybe Penn State, maybe Maryland. They should be playing UConn. They should be playing UMass. That's maybe even like a Villanova or something like that.
Right.
And then roommates and parents and boyfriends and girlfriends and everything can travel and create that kind of thing. As a parent, if I'm a parent of a non-money athlete, it's not football, not basketball, and they start looking at these Big 10, Big 12 schools or whatever, they say, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to spend more time traveling and having hassles than you will competing and practicing and loving your sport, and you will burn out on it, and you might fail your classes because you're not there.
Yes.
So go to Johns Hopkins, go to whatever instead, and maybe that's what's got to happen. The other sports have to get so non-prestigious that these conferences say, hey, let's cut that loose and make it separate so that we don't lose all these other things.
Yeah, because a football team isn't as bothered by all this stuff. You only play once a week.
Yep.
And it's on weekends. So those athletes aren't being asked to do the same things that the athletes in the other sports are being asked to do.
Right. And it's charter flights for the football team. You know how these big programs are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to get the field hockey team's not taking some sort of chartered flight across the country. They're flying coach. We've flown coach in the past. You go to Indianapolis for the combine, and ladies basketball teams are on the plane.
Oh, it's getting so now, Mike, that almost any time you're on a flight during the school year, you're going to walk through the Charlotte airport or something and see at gate whatever, here's a bunch of women with, Ohio State volleyball on their jackets or something. It's become ubiquitous, and it's I don't know what the answer is.
Right.
But I do know that we're probably at the end of our time here. We went a little long because we had some technical difficulties with my microphone starting out. I want to apologize to everyone for that. I want to thank our guest, Mike Tanier, who was delightful today and really informative. And I hope everyone will read his writing on the Messenger and follow him, wherever he ends up in this crazy sports journalism world. For everybody here at A2D, thank you very much for watching and listening. And we'll be back next week with another Bowen on the Birds.